Hello, hello, hello. So we are continuing in Unit 5. We are finally making the transition from talking about budgeting and saving to talking about something much more exciting, investing. Now, before we get into investing, you all need to know something. Now, if you take a look down that standard down there, explain the difference between simple and compound interest. Investing is all about taking advantage of interest. Like that's what it is. When people say, "Oh, I invest in the stock market, I invest in bonds and mutual funds, IRAs," they're talking about taking advantage of interest. So we need to figure out how to take advantage of interest. And before we even begin, we need to know what interest is. So our LEQ, straightforward enough. What is the difference between simple and compound interest? Now, I am certain that you all have heard of interest before. You may even have a decent idea of what interest is. So here's what I did. I went to my good friend Google and I asked him or her or it what interest is. And here's what Google gave me. It's a fee. So you guys think about this. Interest is a fee paid by a borrower of assets. Again, assets are things you possess of value, most often money. So money is an asset to the owner as a form of compensation for the use of the assets. It is most commonly the price paid for the use of borrowed money or money earned by deposited funds. So, here's the deal. If I loan someone $1,000 and do not charge them interest, that is very nice of me. That's nice. Good. They'll just pay me back just $6,000. The world does not work like that. Now, in theory, that may be a good thing, but there are plenty of reasons why that's a bad thing, which I do not have the time in a high school financial literacy course to cover. But in the real world, there is interest. Sure, I'll lend you $1,000 to do whatever you want with it, but I'm going to charge you 5% interest on that $1,000 so I can make money off of my goodwill of loaning you $1,000. Credit card companies are the exact same way, whether you have Visa, American Express, Wells Fargo credit card, whoever it is. It's like, sure, I will purchase these items for you every time you use a credit purchase. When you swipe your credit card, class, you do not purchase the item. The bank purchases it for you. So if you have a Wells Fargo or Bank of America credit card or a Visa credit card, when you slide that credit card and you choose credit, not debit, the bank purchases it for you. And then at the end of the month, they bill you a statement. If you do not pay everything, they start charging you interest because of their goodwill of loaning you that money up front. When you do a mortgage is a bank loaning you money and you pay the bank back with interest. When you do a car loan, when you go to, Lakeland Auto Mall, Bartow Ford, wherever you want to go and purchase a vehicle, the bank is buying that vehicle for you and they're going to charge you interest on it. Now let's reverse the situation. When you put money in a savings account on the bank, now listen to this, you are lending the bank money. So again, I want to say that again. When you put money in a savings account, some type of savings account in a bank, you are lending the bank money. That is why they pay you a very nominal 0.001% interest rate. And finally, stocks and investments are also ways that interest is applied. Because when you buy stock or invest in a company, you are lending that company your money in exchange for the promise or hope of a higher stock price to make you money, which we'll cover in much more detail later. Okay, so let's get back to our original LEQ. What is the difference between simple interest and compound interest? Now that we have a more solid understanding of what interest is, just a reminder in case you don't, it is a fee paid by a borrower for the use of assets as a form of compensation. There's the easy definition. A fee paid by a borrower for the use of assets as a form of compensation. Okay, so simple interest. Simple interest is called simple because it ignores the effects of compounding, which we're going to cover here in a moment. Here's a sentence I want you to know about simple interest. The interest charged, that is how much interest you are charged or how much interest you make, as in the case of investments, is always based on the original principal. So interest on interest is not included. And again, that's going to make more sense here in just a moment. So the simple interest formula, you guys have probably seen this before, even if you don't remember it. In Algebra 1, Algebra 2, if you took Algebra 3 back when they offered it, you've probably seen this formula before. It is P times I times N, which is principal. When I say principal, that is the initial loan amount. So if you take out a car loan for $35,000, which I hope you never do, the principal is $35,000. If you take out a small business loan for $50,000, the principal is $50,000. And I is the interest rate. So with the credit card with the 17% interest rate, a mortgage with a 3.4% interest rate, a car loan with a 7.8% interest rate. That's what we're getting at there. And N is the duration of the loan. So if you take out a car loan from a bank, it's like, okay, sure, we'll buy this car for you. You're going to pay us back, the $25,000 plus 7% interest over the course of, and then it varies, 3, 5, 6 years or so, sometimes even 10 years, in which interest will eat you up. All right, so P times I times N. Let's see it in an example. So we have a student just graduated high school. Hey, that sounds a lot like you guys in a few months. And you're not going to go to college in the military, which is fine. Instead, you don't want to work for the man. You want to be your own boss, and you decide to start a small lawn mowing business. So rather than saving $10,000 over the course of time, which I would recommend you do because you can avoid paying the bank interest, but regardless of my advice, you go to the bank and take out a small business loan. You take out $10,000 to purchase your startup capital. So that is, you need a lawnmower, you need a trailer, you need 2 or 3 weed eaters, a blower, an edger, so on and so forth. $10,000 worth of startup capital. And here's the conditions of the loan. The bank tells you, sure, we'll loan you $10,000. Absolutely. We're gonna charge you 10% interest though on this $10,000, and you're gonna have to have it all paid back within 5 years. So let's apply the simple interest formula. So the interest is principal times the interest rate times the loan period. Now I want to draw your attention right here to the interest rate, guys. So when you're doing this calculation, make sure if it's like 5% interest or 3% interest, you're doing 0.05. If you did 0.5, that's 50% interest, which is unheard of. So make sure you include that zero in there. If it's 12% interest, it's 0.12, okay? So in my calculator, it's just very simple. I'm going to do 10,000 times 0.05 times 5, and I get the answer of $2,500. So here's what I want you guys to get from this. Over the course of 5 years, on a $10,000 loan at a 10% interest rate, which is a lot, 10% interest rate is a lot, you are paying the bank an additional $2,500 in interest. So class, what is the total amount you paid the bank? You paid them $12,500. That is a lot. So even though you borrowed $10,000, you paid them $12,500 for their goodwill of loaning you money for your startup capital. All right, very simple. Now let's look at compound interest. This is where banks make money. This is where investors can make money as well. So here's the thing with compound interest. Compound interest is added to the principal of a deposit. That is how much money you initially put on a loan, whether you borrow $10,000 from a bank or if you invest $500 in the stock market, whatever it is. So that the added interest also earns interest from then on. This addition of interest to the principal is called compounding. So if you look back at our definition of simple interest, the interest is not compounded. Okay, so if you take a look at that formula for compounding, compare that beastly looking formula. That's like Algebra 2 level stuff. Compare that to the simple interest formula. Again, the simple interest formula is just that simple. Principal times interest times length of the loan period versus this monstrosity right here. Now, luckily in class, I do not teach college level economics and I'm not a math teacher, so we are going to be using compound interest calculators when we work with compound interest. But I want you guys to simply look at the formula and appreciate its complexity. So here is the deal. So here's the deal. Let's take a look at an example. So this is the exact same example as you saw in the simple interest formula. The numbers are exactly the same. The principal is $10,000. The length of the loan period is 5 years, and the interest rate is 5%. So what I would like all of you guys to do, I want you on your phones to find a compound interest calculator. My favorite one is actually a website. I go to investor.gov and use their compound interest calculator, but you can use any one on your phone. That is fine. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of free apps, so please take a moment, go to the Play Store or Google Play or the App Store, whatever they're called nowadays, and find a compound interest calculator. So rather than using that beastly formula that we just saw for compound interest, we're just going to plug the numbers in, let technology do the thinking for us. So current principal, we invested $10,000. Did we take out any more per month or add any more per month? No, we did not. So we're going to put 0 there. Years to grow. The loan period was for 5 years. The interest rate was at 5%. Now, compounding interest, it's generally 1% per year, so just leave it there. So let's calculate. Okay, here we go. So, with simple interest, we paid an additional $2,500 in interest. With compound interest, we paid an additional $262.82. Okay, so look, think about that. So even though the accumulated interest on a simple interest formula was $2,500, using the exact same numbers, somehow with compound interest, it ended up being a difference of $2,762.82, which is a difference, that's a difference of about $262. Okay, so here's what I want you guys to know. If you are not slightly confused after this video, then you probably are going to be very confused tomorrow, because I did not even begin to explore the depths of simple versus compound interest with you. There's just a few very simple takeaways I want you to know from this video. We're going to practice this much more in class, okay? So our LEQ is what the difference between simple and compound interest. And here's the key difference. If I had to have you know one thing, so if my boss were to come in and ask you, what is the difference between simple and compound interest? Here's what you say. Well, the difference is in how the interest is applied to the principal. Remember, the principal is the initial loan amount. The difference is in how the interest is applied to the principal. In simple interest, the interest is only applied to the principal each term, which is, about 1 year. So after 1 year, you're charged interest. After 2 years, you're charged interest. Compare that to compound interest. The interest is applied to the principal in addition to any interest previously accumulated. Okay, so I'm going to end it there and let you think about that. We are going to cover this a lot more in class, as well as additional homework videos. So the key thing I want you guys to know, simple interest and compound interest are different, and the difference is in how the interest is applied to the principal. Thank you for watching this video. I'll see you all in class.